That's my talk. That's my talk. She knew it was my talk. Well, my talk is actually about self-acceptance, but that's part of it, isn't it? Everything is possible. And the more we are willing to be in acceptance to ourselves, we realize everything is possible. Thanks for setting that up, music. I appreciate that. So this week is our second week of a 7-week series of working with chakra and then a message around it. And today is the orange chakra, or the navel chakra. Hence, I'm wearing orange, my most favorite color of all. And it's around our relationships, creativity, sexuality, assimilating new ideas, movement, control, money, some small stuff, just a little bit of stuff. And we're working on this with this book, Courageous Dreaming, by Alberto Villa. I've said it a million times, Villaldo. And this guy, I'm telling you, I read a lot of books, and this guy is so far really, really rocking my world, because he's talking about things that those of us that are over 30 would just be shaking our heads saying, that's right. That's right. And those of you that are younger have not had to have it attached onto you yet. Praise God. So that's great. What he's actually started out as a clinical researcher, but he was the youngest one at the San Francisco University. And he started out working there, doing his research. He was a clinical professor, actually. And he started realizing that everything he was doing, looking into the microscope at tiny, tiny, tiny things, was not it for him. That certainly his work and his good was to be looking at the bigger picture, the expansive world. And so he decided, after some meditation, that the vision to go to the Andes and the Amazon to study was where he was going to be doing his work. And of course, everyone in his colleague world said, oh my God, you have this choice plum career path. What the heck would you go do that for? Like, where's the goodies in that? Where's the prestige in that? And he just sort of said, nah, I'm not vibing it. And he went to the dean and said, I'm going to do this. And the dean was the only one that supported him, because the dean personally thought that his job was overrated and he could be dismissed. And when I was reading this, it just reminded me of how we live our lives. So I'm going to indulge myself in a little fable, and then I'm going to read a couple of clips from this because it's so powerful. So the fable that I want to share with you is The Ugly Duckling. Some of you might know it. Some of you might have missed that choice little story. But I think it's the key, the nuts and bolts, the simple version of self-esteem. So there was, I believe they're called, for geese, they're called gaggles, and I think that they're for ducks are the same thing. There was a gaggle of ducks, brothers and sisters, and they were all playing together in the water. And they had one brother who they made fun of, they ridiculed him, they just treated him unkindly. He's ugly, he doesn't belong, he doesn't fit in. And they tormented him constantly. And so the short version of the story is he left his brothers and sisters because he felt so isolated from them and unloved from them. And he went through different scenarios to find places to live until the springtime came and the waters thawed and he would be safe again. And through his journey, he wound up at the waters thawing in a lake. And he saw this amazing, magnificent creature. She was breathtaking. He looked at her. She was just gorgeous. And then he remembered all the chatter he'd heard from his brothers and sisters. You're ugly, all the terrible berating language. So then he put his head down in shame, thinking, I can't go talk to her. And he saw his reflection in the water. his reflection reflected back something so outstanding and astonishing. He saw the same magnificence that he saw in this swan in himself. And he smiled with delight, and he said, "I'm not an ugly duckling. I'm not an ugly duckling. I'm a swan. I'm a swan. I'm a beautiful swan." And then, of course, he felt permission to approach her. But this is so much of how we are in our own lives. And this is why this guy, Alberto, talking about dreaming and dreaming your perfect life, he says that we're always in a dream state. We're either dreaming awake or asleep. And when we're awake, when we're dreaming, if our dreams are not to our magnificence, if our dreams are not to that piece of us that gives us happiness and joy and authenticity, then we call that a nightmare. So we're either being courageous and mighty and living our dream, or we have allowed ourselves to be sucked into the darkness of our nightmare. Now, I have a few things I want to read because they are so profound to me, and they're kind of like the nuts and bolts. From babyhood forward, we're spoon-fed a set of expectations that most of us don't bother to question until the day we wake up and realize that our lives aren't working for us. Even with all the social changes we've gone through as a civilization in the last 50 years, we find ourselves easily buying into scripted ideas about how we should live our lives and measure our worth and happiness. Ring true to anybody in here besides me? It's kind of like buying the ticket to the show and not realizing what movie it is and thinking, oh, I don't want to go to that movie, thanks so much. So then the last thing I want to share with you is this other piece that goes right behind it. Unlike sacred dreams, the goals we set for ourselves don't tend to be very creative. Hard as we try to figure out how to manifest happiness in our lives, we don't often have the courage or the creativity to conceive of a radically different way of living. Rather than question the expectations we've been carrying with ourselves since early childhood, most of us simply go along with the nightmare of mediocrity. Just sit with that. The nightmare of mediocrity. I'm sure you didn't dress up as that last night when you went to your Halloween parties. I certainly hope not. That is a culture of conformity shaped by the media, which pretends to celebrate difference, diversity, and creativity, but actually promotes belonging and security to the extreme. We become afraid to break out of the mold, to do anything truly different. That blew my mind. Now, I was very fortunate to be raised with at least a mom that had creative children, and instead of trying to squelch their thunder and tell them no, she tried to be very supportive and encourage us to be our colorful, bold, loud selves. And we have been. Have any of you ever been told you're too loud?
Oh, yeah.
That you should tone it down a notch? That you're embarrassing me? My whole life. But yet, have you also found that you're this magnet and that you draw people right into you that want to suck up all of that because they want it and they don't know how to have it, so they want to have some of yours. But at the same time, they're too embarrassed by it to claim it for themselves, so they want you to numb down. because you're embarrassing them. Well, I've always been an artistic being. I've always been an abstract artist. And I've always found that the art world allowed me to be. I was probably the only one in schooling that was not stoned while painting, while working on ceramics, while working on jewelry. And everyone else was way out there on all kinds of stuff. But honestly, it was the only place I fit in. Because as altered as they were chemically, I could be me and sparkle and shine and be happy. And it didn't matter if I didn't understand everything that was going on, but it was very fun in my younger years to be that. And then what tends to happen is, I don't know about you, but for me, the ticket that I bought was, I'm supposed to be a certain way. I'm supposed to get a job that I can be responsible and make money. And I was a feminist at the age of 5, so therefore I was not expecting anyone to take care of me and bring in the money. That was on me. And as an artist, I couldn't quite conceive of how that was going to happen, or at least I started to allow the little stories to seep in that my parents started saying about how you're not going to be able to make a living that way. And so I started to become beige. And I'm not saying that beige is bad or gray is bad, but they're not the best colors for me. There really aren't. And I started to become less than my effervescent, sparkalicious self. I started to conform with the rest of the world. Now, I didn't do the, get married. Well, I did that. But, kids and house and do the things you're expected to do. No, I got married because there was a part of me that thought I might like to have children. I realized that wasn't a really good idea for me. And so I changed that idea. And I also realized that the whole having children marriage thing was around society, AKA my relatives, saying, when are you going to have children? When are you going to make your mother happy? I told my mother a long time ago, if you want grandchildren, I'm having dogs, so embrace that. Okay? And so the thing that's so amazing is I'm starting to notice commercials that are showing we are working so hard to become ourself because somehow we lost the way and we started to numb down to what was expected of us and to conform to the expectations of others, that we lost the part of us that wanted to dare to dream colorfully, boldly, or even have a dream. We're spinning around in the nightmare of divine discontent, mediocrity, less than the joy that fills our hearts. We tell ourselves if we make more money, if we get a different job, if we get a different car, we get a different partner, something will change. And then we tell ourselves, oh, I waited too long. I waited too long. It's past the time, and I can't do anything anymore. I can't do anything anymore. I'm too old now, so I've missed all my opportunities to dream. I'm too old now. Have you seen the commercial where this guy goes in to his dad and he says, I'm going to quit my job, and I'm going to quit everything, and I'm going to sell everything, and I'm going to get on the road and do a road trip? It's a car commercial. And his dad says, you're going to let go of everything? And he says, yeah, because I want to go on the road. Now, in my wiring, my father would have said, what are you talking about? How could you do that? But this one, the guy actually says, I wish I'd done that. And then it shows the guy on the road in the car with his son doing the road trip, because some part of him realized, it's not too late for me to dream big. It's not too late for me to start what I wanted to do. Or maybe just stop and think about, what's calling me today? What do I want to do today? What am I feeling passionate about doing today? And if you are around people that are telling you you are too old People aren't hiring. This isn't part of the world that we live in. You can't do that. Get away from them very quickly. They are not supporting your bright, bold color. They're not. I want to read you one of my most favorite quotes. I'm a Ralph Waldo Emerson fanatic. Emerson says, "To be yourself in a world that is continuously trying to make you something else is the greatest accomplishment you can have." I know some of you have read Emerson, so you're sort of going, I read that in school. I remember that. That is who I'm speaking to. That's the person right now, the one that's saying, oh, I had such a long, beautiful list of things I was going to do, and for whatever reason, I didn't do them. Well, this year, instead of making out a holiday list of what you want Santa to bring, why don't you make a list of the things you'd like to have experienced in your life that give you joy? I'm not talking about a bucket list, and that could work too. I'm talking about maybe you wanted to write. Maybe you wanted to learn to play an instrument. Maybe you're in your 70s and you've had this call to be a belly dancer your whole life, and people keep saying that's ridiculous. No, it's ridiculous not to. Don't allow yourself to feel, I can't. I read something online yesterday, and it was a woman that was like a corporate, professional woman that said, maybe it's time to let go of perfection and start embracing self-acceptance. Now, she was in her late 50s, early 60s, I'm guessing, and I thought, how many of us, 40 and up, are just now having a hankering to do something crazy with abandonment? Maybe some of you love Halloween so much because it's the only time of year you dress up. You get in a crazy costume, and if nothing else, you tell yourself it's to hand out candy to the children. It's not. You're eating that candy, you know you are, and you're in your house dancing around in your costume because you're excited, because it's the alternate persona within you that's wanted to be bold and outrageous and crazy based on someone else's idea of you. It's not. It's you. It's the you that has wanted to be. So you've had your careers, you've had your kids, you've chased the carrot for everything you thought you wanted that didn't make you happy. You younger people in the room, don't do it. Go do the crazy thing. And if someone wants to say, how are you going to make a living doing that? Guess what? What about the part that makes your spirit happy? I remember starting ministerial school. I had a pretty good job, full package benefits, blah-de-blah-de-blah. And my father says to me, can you make any money doing that? Well, of course, he's my dad, and, I'm the single woman, and he's concerned that I'm going to be okay. And I had to find a way to say to him, Daddy, I'm miserable. I am so off my purpose in life. That's not making me happy anymore. I'm going to die with money in my pocket. Who cares? I'm going to do what makes my heart sing. And I guess there was a piece of him that kind of felt like, okay, while he told my brother, make sure to take care of your sister, okay? And then my brother pulling me aside saying, can you make any money in that? Well, guess what? How many of you in here are making bank and go home so miserable every day? No, that's not the peace that gives you joy. And the only way that you can have a self-respect, self-esteem, self-appreciation, and what's that other word? Self-acceptance, is by saying, I matter. I count. And what I want to do, by gosh, I'm going to be Mrs. Fields with the next crazy idea and go out and do it just because I can. And if my grandchild says to me, Grandma, Grandpa, you're silly, You're ridiculous? Yeah. You're right, sweetheart. Thank you for noticing that about me. Thank you for noticing me. Thank you. I had a woman in my hour of power last week. Bless her heart. She's semi-retired. All her friends are retired. She's coming up with some new way to reinvent herself she's jazzed about. And her friends were thinking, what? Why do you want to do that? Because that made them feel bad, or that made them feel like maybe they're supposed to be doing something else, and they don't want to. So they wanted to make her feel bad because she did. She wanted to let her light shine in a way that she had never let it shine before. So I'm going to bring a few things up to you. We are in just the beginning stages of a self-mastery class, and this is a class where you get a chance to look at some stuff that will have you stand taller, shoulders back, maybe a little bolder color about your authentic self. Self-acceptance personified. Jump in. We love to play with you. Also, we are formulating 2 groups, and we're not trying to be exclusive. We're really not, but we're noticing a different niche. We're putting together a men's group. We're putting together a women's group. These groups were specifically designed for a little bit different age bracket. Why? Because many of you younger people have already got self-esteem and self-acceptance and self-appreciation. And many of us that are now reinventing it ourselves, close to 60, want to have a way to stand taller. And so we're putting together a men's group specifically to be in support to men, although the men, they're having a different vibe that's not like my vibe. So talk to Neil about it, because his is not having age groups. The men, they're playing a little more wild than I am. Mine has got a totally different vibe. So if you have interest in any of these groups, come up to us. If you're a younger woman and this is irritating you and pissing you off, come up to me anyway and we'll talk about it. Maybe I'll loosen up my reins on what it looks like. So I want you all to think about what piece of you has not let yourself dream. You want to take yourself out of your nightmare now? You want to have a dream? You want to dare to dream courageously, boldly? Start thinking about things you'd like to create, you'd like to do, you'd like to imagine. And if you were writing a letter to Santa, instead of saying, "Dear Santa, I want this," which you guys have all got everything you need, what would those qualities look like for you that you could start to feed your spirit so that you really did feel as though I have great self-appreciation, self-esteem, self-acceptance, and I want to dare to dream boldly. And if you want to wear beige, it's okay. I'm still going to be wearing bright, loud colors. And step away from those people that keep wanting to tell you you're too loud or you're too this. They're not your people. We're your people. We're going to support you. We're going to raise you up. We're going to love you and let you be as wild as you want to be, as long as you're being respectful to yourself and aware of others. Then it's all good. So I want to end with one last little thing. Another quote of Emerson's that's one of my faves as well is, "My life is not an apology, it's a life." If you're catching yourself apologizing for who you are being, stop it. And the last thing, heard this song in my head this morning. I'm coming out, so you better get this party started. And that's your song to yourself. You're coming out into your bold, great, vivacious, alive self. Yay, celebrate you. Let's take a moment just to go inward. just to go inward and to let that love and to let that bright color and let that enthusiasm just permeate you. And if you want to just give yourself a squeeze, remember I just gave you full out permission to do so. Knowing that God, that divine spirit that is absolutely everywhere, is with you. It is you, is as you, showing up in that individual, unique expression, not conforming, not setting still the things that create passion, but the part of you that has always wanted to show your shine, your sparkle, your creative nature in whatever way that is. That you are allowing yourself to dream a bold and daring and courageous dream, full of the things that make you feel alive, filled and overflowing with joy. And that you are giving yourself thanks for giving permission to saying yes to yourself. Yes. No matter what age you are and what station in life you're in, you are coming out to that playful, silly, grand nature that's always been there. Always been there. Not too loud, not too anything, just right for you. I'm giving great thanks for knowing that you are open, willing, and allowing any piece of this that maybe twitched and twinged you a little to smile and say, yeah, I like it. And that you give that to yourself freely, with abandon, just freely. I'm giving great thanks for knowing that just as I have spoken these words and we've all shared the energy together, there's a shift in this room, a mighty shift in consciousness in this room, and that I know, and I know that I know, that when I get out of my way and I allow Spirit to do what Spirit does best, that I release this to the action of law, which always says yes to me and allows it to be so. If any of this resonates with you, please anchor it with me by saying, and so it is. Thank you.
And so we're going to be having, for the next few weeks, also testimonials for you having to do with why tithe? Why do I tithe? And this week I bring to you Elaine DeMars. You look lovely today.
Good morning. For the past 2 times that I got up to do the invocation, I wanted to stand at the microphone and say, do you know how this stuff works? Do you realize how this teaching works? I have had so many demonstrations in my life over the past few months that it just amazes me, and I'm in awe. And I want to tell you that it's all predicated on my spiritual practice, on my daily meditation, my daily reading of the science of mind, my movement into understanding who God is in my life every day. And it also has to do with my movement into tithing. It wasn't easy. It was a process for me. I moved from decades ago giving my spare change to now giving the full 10% of my income, knowing that 100% is sourced to me by that one who has no limit, and knowing that the 90% is mine to use. And so I allow it to flow through me. I know that my good is always at hand, and that this right here is my spiritual community. This is where I get fed. This teaching is what has lifted me beyond anything I could have ever imagined. And so I give willingly and joyously. And I am open to receive that good. So I know that I'm here to allow all that is to come through me. I welcome it. I know that I'm here to let it be. I'm not here to grasp anything in life. And so this little thing that I hold up is my 10% that comes out of my bank account before I even see it. Could it pay another bill? Sure. But guess what? My bills are always paid, except when I forget once in a while. But it's such a joy to know that I have a source that is without limit, without bounds. And as I open and accept to it, it gives to me. And so this 10% is my investment in that consciousness and the confidence of God that is now mine. I live in it, and I invite you to do that too. Thank you.